Welcome to After the Bell. I am your host, Lauren Cranmer. Today we have a really special episode. Me and Jen, who is the host of Not Today Cancer podcast, we came together and kind of made one podcast from the both of us to you. We wanted to talk about both of our stories and the changes that we made after cancer that really we felt has bettered our lives. So I really think this was an awesome conversation and I'm really excited to get it to you. So please welcome Jen with me.
Nobody wants to get a diagnosis, but we all say it's the connections you make is pretty incredible. So we're going to kind of just have conversation going back and forth today, sharing all the things. And let's start off with your story with cancer.
Well, just to keep it light and short, because it could be a very hefty one, as I'm sure everybody is in the cancer world is. But basically, I had found a lump when I finished breastfeeding my son. And it was chalked up to breastfeeding, follow up in 6 months, the whole bing, bam, boom. Even my radiologist was like, don't lose sleep over this. He reassured me. And I was like, okay, this is good. Obviously, life went on. Me and my husband decided to proceed as normal, got pregnant in the meantime. So in the midst of that, that's when my follow-up was happening. So I was 7 weeks pregnant, diagnosed with breast cancer. And, it was it was a very wild feeling to, go from such a high of enjoying the pregnancy alone. And a month later, I'm finding out that I have breast cancer. So immediately we went into, well, not immediately, we actually waited a little bit to get into my second trimester, but we did mastectomy, 12 out of 16 chemotherapies together. Then I had my daughter healthy and happy, thank God. And then I moved on to the rest of my treatment after that. So
that is crazy to me. Okay. First of all, how old were you when you first discovered it?
32.
So you're 32 years old, you see this and they're like, it's no big deal. And how big was it? You felt it? And was it?
It was so small. So when I say lump, I don't even want to say lump because I thought I was crazy because I felt it 100 times. I'm like, am I just making this up in my head? But something told me to go get it checked and I did. And my gynecologist actually noticed it, which is obviously why she sent me for a diagnostic mammo. But the radiologist, chalked it up to being a galactocele, which is essentially built up milk or built up debris from breastfeeding.
Wow. And then how much later were you, how much longer after when you actually got you were 7 weeks pregnant and got the diagnosis?
That was around 6 months after that. So it was right around that, that standard follow-up because it's just procedure to follow up any kind of lump that is in the breast, at least where I went. I'm not sure if that's standard across the board, but a 6-month follow-up of another mammo ultrasound.
I can't imagine the fear you must have had being pregnant and doing chemo.
Yeah, that was my worst fear, for sure.
How do you do that?
So, immediately they didn't think I was going to need chemo. So I was really praying for the fact that wasn't the case. Obviously, even if I wasn't pregnant, chemo, was a fear. I think that is for most people.
Of course.
So basically, I got so lucky because I stumbled upon in my crazy research after I was diagnosed, which, just hunting for things and relatable stories. But I found a maternal fetal medicine doctor who actually runs a study in cancer and pregnancy. So with that, I found a whole Facebook group of women going through this. And she also offered advice to me of things she's learned through her study. She wasn't my actual doctor, but she helped a ton in terms of how we guided my treatment, because there's some medication changes that we could do that would better for pregnant women, which is wild still. But overall, there's actually anecdotal evidence that pregnant women tolerate chemo side effects better.
Wow. And so you did.
I feel like yes, because I had side effects, but I think my biggest side effect was the progressive fatigue. And I was pregnant too. So that whole thing.
Right.
But but yeah, they just, we just did it. I don't know how I like, it's wild still to think about.
It is wild. And I think research is so important. Now I always say, don't research the scary stuff, research what's possible and what you can do. In fact, somebody that follows me, she had just messaged me and I had shared something about pregnant women after breast cancer. They just shared something. And she was like, wait, what? I am allowed to have babies? I'm like, of course. Yes, there's many women after breast cancer. And I think she's from a different country. So she has an appointment scheduled. Like she thought it was some doctor told her you can never get pregnant again. And that's just not the case. I mean,
yeah. And two, even, I know I actually used to work in a fertility clinic as a nurse. So we did experience a lot of women come in for like preservation purposes because of cancer. And that a lot too, I've noticed that like isn't actually, sometimes doctors forget to mention that part and people start treatment and forget to the whole fertility aspect, which is just, you still can, you 100% can go on and have children, especially if you take precaution like that, preserve things and whatnot. So, yeah.
Wow. And how long has it been since your diagnosis?
So I was diagnosed in 2021. So it's 3 years.
Okay. Same as me. What month?
March.
Okay. God, we were like literally the same time.
What was yours?
February 21.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
oh
21.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Ugh, that gives me like chills. I don't know.
I know. I actually no, it was 2/22/21.
Okay.
I had all the twos.
Yeah, mine was March 8th. So it was very close.
We were so close. A little different. I mean, I was, I'm older than you. I was 47, I think, at my diagnosis. And mine was just a routine mammogram. I think a lot of times, and literally, even when they said, do you want to feel it? Here it is. I still couldn't feel it. You know how a lot of women, I mean, I do know the majority of women do find their own. So like, it's really important, but I would not have known without that mammogram.
So you didn't have any symptoms of any sort that you could even see in hindsight?
Nope. I mean, leading up to that, looking back, I was having very heavy periods. I was just like, I was having like GI issues, like indigestion, like weird things like that I have now heard are weird signs that could potentially mean breast cancer. And, of course I didn't know anything. And yeah, it rocked my world. So, I was in a different phase in life that you were in, but I think it still affects us. It doesn't matter
how old you are. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
not at
just
all
rocks your world. And I just remember thinking like, and I think we all, and maybe you didn't, I don't know, but I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, my life is over. Did you feel that? Or
immediate sense of just, I mean, it was a little different because I immediately thought of my daughter and I just wanted her to be okay, but I didn't see much further than that, like I didn't, for myself, I was just like, I need to make her okay. And then, like that part was like all gray. I didn't see any, I was thinking that kind of was like it for me because I couldn't immediately, I didn't even know if I could be treated. I was thinking that this was like a kind of like choice situation because I've never heard of this before.
Yeah.
So that's the route I was thinking. I was thinking dark, like deep and dark.
I know. I would have thought literally with, I mean, I have different knowledge now, but thinking back then, I would have thought that you would have had to have an abortion.
Yeah. Well, actually one of my gynecologists said I did have that option, which is like an old school thinking in the sense of, not offering both ends of the spectrum, but it was on the table, which obviously was not what I wanted to do. That was, I didn't want to go that route.
Right. I wouldn't have either if that was an option. I mean, but think about places where that's not offered because I'm sure there are.
I know. It's scary.
Wild.
It's scary to not have options.
Yeah. So what was your exact diagnosis then?
So initially I was initially they thought it was stage like 1B, but later on learned it was stage 3A.
Okay.
Because after my mastectomy, they found lymph node involvement, which is why I ultimately had obviously chemo and radiation and all that jazz. Okay. But yeah, I had 7 out of 21 lymph nodes positive out of my removal.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so definitely chemo's on. Did you do the you probably didn't do the oncotype score.
Mm-mm.
They usually are like, when it's that, they just don't even do it because it's a for sure thing.
Yeah, and I when I woke up from a mastectomy, that was like my first question was like, was it in the lymph nodes? Because I knew that was the determining factor of like everything going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like I was groggy still, but no one was telling me. They were waiting for my doctor to come, and that in and of itself was, obvious.
So scary. Yeah.
And scary, but like my plastic surgeon actually came in and was like, informed me. So I knew going forward what was going to happen. But yeah, it was just a wild, wild time in my life.
Oh yeah. I cannot even imagine. So my oncotype score, I did do an oncotype score. So I was a stage 1, grade 2. So it was a little bit of a higher grade.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Was yours higher? What grade was yours? Grade 2.
2.
Okay. So and then we did the oncotype score, and that came back in that gray area. So I was a 21. So that's where, yes, you want to make choices.
Yes.
But sometimes you're like,
tell me what to do.
Yeah. Tell me what to do.
Yes.
And, so I love my oncologist, but I was like, what would you do? And, here are the options. And she said, well, what I would do is I would because for 2 weeks it was on the table. For 2 weeks, I was doing chemo, and I was like buying wigs and doing all the things. And all of a sudden she retested the oncotype score and felt more comfortable, because I had what they saw one tiny little baby cancer cell in a node in my lymph node.
Okay.
But apparently when you only find one, it means that there's really a negative. There's no node involvement.
Right.
So she redid the oncotype score as no node involvement. And that's where the numbers changed a little bit.
Interesting.
So we did do Zoladex injections to shut down my ovaries, and went on an aromatase inhibitor, and she felt comfortable with that. So you must be on endocrine therapy too. Yeah. What are you on?
I'm on Zoladex as well, and exemestane, the aromatase inhibitor as well.
And how are you doing on that?
I think I'm actually, I do have like stiff joints in the morning, and I notice that I need to stay in motion for sure. But I think overall I'm doing pretty well. I started off on Letrozole, and had a pretty interesting experience. Like I felt like I was having a lot of mental, like I was having a lot of anxiety and like very deep depressive episode where it's not normal for me. So I immediately asked, it was like 8 days in. Oh, wow. And I asked my oncologist, like, hey, this seems, a little off. Can we try something else? Because I knew there was 2 other options. And then ever since, exemestane has seemed to be fine for me. Which one are you taking?
I'm so glad we're saying this. This is so wild. So this is for everyone out there listening. We all are unique beings. Yep. We all respond differently to everything. You could have the exact same diagnosis as somebody else. You could go through the same treatment, and you can respond totally different to everything. So I started off on exemestane, and I struggled big time. And I had actually some depression, or not depression, but I just felt like in a funk for the first few weeks, but I stayed on it. But I had the worst joint. So I think I was on it for about a year. And then I had some major back issues, and then talked with my doctor, took a whole month off of it. And then I switched to Letrozole, and I had no issues on Letrozole, like
amazing.
None. I felt like, oh my God, I'm going to power through this.
That's wild. Yeah.
Right. I know. But then have you done the repeat DEXA scan?
Yes, I've had 2 so far.
And how'd you do?
Interestingly enough, like there were some, I guess, losses, but there was also some gains. So
wow.
I'm not upset about that.
That is amazing. So I went from nothing to osteoporosis.
And wow. Oh my gosh. That's
wild. So they said they've never in their life seen such rapid growth. So again, do not let that scare you. I am a unique person.
Right.
And the weird thing is I know my body, and I know I respond. Like whatever drug you're going to give me, if it says there's potential like symptoms to like be tired, I am passed out on the couch. Like
you're getting
I take on drugs. And so I think I paused it for a little bit, and I'm going to see what I'm going to do. I'm actually meeting with my oncologist here in the next couple of weeks, but it's been, that's a tough thing because osteoporosis, and I lift, this was
do
not
all the things.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was doing so well in letrozole. I thought there's no way, there's not going to be any issues. I'm going to be great.
You said you paused it, like you're off of it right now.
Yeah.
How long have you been off of it?
It's been almost a year.
Oh my gosh. And how have you felt since that? Like since?
It's really good. But here's what I did. And here's what's important for everybody else. Like, do not do what I'm doing. I don't recommend going off meds. I'm not, I might go back on. Tamoxifen has been offered to me. That could be a possibility because actually postmenopausal tamoxifen can help with your bones, which is premenopausal tamoxifen can affect your bones. Right. So that's kind of crazy. So I feel good, and they wanted me to do infusions, bone infusions, but I am a researcher like you are. And I'm like, gosh, if I do these bone infusions, then all of a sudden this could happen. Yeah. And it's just like, you're on this, like, this hamster wheel of like, you take this med for this, but then it causes this. And I was like, I need a break. Yeah. So I started researching osteoporosis and all the things that I could be doing to support myself. Took a pause on the AI. I don't know. I might go back to it. And my doctor literally said, here's your risk. You've already been on it for it was about 2.5 years I was on it. She's like, so you've got that in you, which is good. Mm-hmm. Here's your risk. And I was like, I think it was like a 5% risk of recurrence. And I was like, 5%, like it's worth it to me to take a break. So it depends on what's worth it for you. Because like I was scared, like, oh my gosh, I could literally stand up and break a bone. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
They were like, this is nothing to mess around with.
Yeah. And you have to like decide at which point, like what's more important at that point, a quality of life versus, the risk. And
exactly. And if I hadn't gotten osteoporosis, I would still be on that med.
Right.
There's no question that I did. Right. I was tolerating it really well. And another thing that we had talked about, which I think is important too, is if you're on an AI, you've got 3 options total. And even if those 3 don't work, there's always tamoxifen too. Although tamoxifen doesn't work as well postmenopausal, but again, it still works, just not as good as premenopausal.
Yeah. And it's like you're choosing between side effects essentially too. Like there's always something that you have to decide on in terms of medication. So it's a lot.
It's a lot. And it's never a one and done thing. I think so many people just assume, oh my gosh, you're done. You completed treatment. You rang that bell. And it is lifelong. All the choices and the decisions and the medicines and it's a lifelong thing.
It's very lifelong. Yeah. Absolutely.
But it doesn't need to be terrible either. Like you have to get outside of that cancer bubble and live your life too and not be stuck in it. So let's talk about changes we made. You want to start did you make changes after your diagnosis?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because I'm sure everybody experiences this kind of in two situations, right? Where people experience the pressure of making changes, but also the desire to, because you don't want to experience what you've been through and you want to combat everything that you're experiencing, there's so you feel a lot of pressure, but you also want to make the right choices. But for me, the way I just dealt with it was I immediately started to do all the healing things, right? I started going to therapy. I exercised more. I tried to eat better, which means for me, I felt like I was eating healthy originally, but I made sure I had veggies on every plate. That was my first change initially. Just, I don't care what I was eating. It could have been ice cream. I had veggies or a fruit,
awesome. Yeah.
And I got outside more. I meditated. I really focused on that like internal work because I was at right when treatment ended, I felt like I was at a really low place. And dealing with everything mentally. So I just wanted to add to that hole. So I did all the things. I went to acupuncture too. You name it, I probably tried it. So I really went down that road of just like this holistic healing journey and fell in love with it. And, that's kind of just how I've been proceeding. I've definitely involved more balance now that I'm 3 years out. But I'm still incorporating all of these things to just maintain health and happiness. I feel like you've done similar things just by, watching you and your
exact
journey.
same. Exactly. So I knew and again, this is, some people get upset by this, but this is never to blame or shame.
Right.
But you got a diagnosis. And I think like if I were to go back to the old, everything I was doing, I'd be like, well, wait, I'm doing the same thing. Can't that potentially come back? And like, that would bring on more fear. I wanted to minimize my fear as much as I could of recurrence. Yes. So by me taking some control in it, I think that would help. And is it going to work? I hope. Like if whatever, but it's me putting the effort in. So I immediately changed my diet. Again, if people looking at me on the outside, I looked really thin, but I really wasn't. I was just focused on getting protein in, and I didn't care what it was. It was protein, shakes and packaged and bars. And like, do you know what I mean? It just wasn't.
Yeah. Like old school healthy.
Yes. Old school healthy. Yes. And so I completely went whole food, plant-based. I don't do the fake meats, but I incorporate a lot of soy, and I do have, fish every once in a while, especially when we're traveling to, a good place that has like good fish. But yeah, so food was a big part of it. Getting outside, meditating was a huge piece too. I had to have a way to calm myself because I had such a fight or flight response. I was so scared, living in fear. And the only thing that calmed me was meditation and getting outside and going slower and just calm. I'm a type A personality where I could go.
Same.
Yeah. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I need to slow down. And so
you need to sit for a minute, like just relax.
Yes. I mean, everything changed. So from that, but I mean, I really think it's working on our mindset, our, what we're eating, the way we're working out, even being kinder to our bodies. I feel like I was also killing myself in the gym. I had so much cortisol going through me at all times.
Yeah. And that's huge too I feel like we have to push harder to get more, especially as for women, especially as we age. It's almost the opposite. You really have to start, you get more with less because your body is able to heal and recover in different ways. And, slowing down is probably the first thing I would say to do is just slow down first. Get your mind in a place where you feel like you have some control. I think what you said before, controlling the controllables for your mind, like, yes, eating well is great. Exercising is great. But if your mind's not in check, you're building off of a unstable foundation there. So controlling controllables, which is the food we eat, the way we move our bodies, is huge for how we proceed with how we feel with, cancer diagnosis, survivorship, all the things.
Yeah. I remember thinking like walking, like, I don't have time for walking. I need to run. And now I walk and I look around and I look at the beauty around me and I pay attention to my surrounding. And I used to just like run and not even like, I just wasn't even like thinking or looking that's, I think one of the beautiful things is just what we see around us too, but definitely. And then I lift 3 days a week. I don't overdo it. And I walk.
Get it, girl.
Yeah, I know.
No, walking is like a multiple thing. You work on the mind, you get to stay present, enjoy the sun, get that vitamin D, and move. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
And so what do? You are a you say it.
I'm a registered nurse. I previously my experiences with fertility, right, and reproductive endocrinology. But then when I had my son, when I didn't have my son, when I got cancer, I ended up going out of work. Like I didn't go back to work, but I still wanted to practice nursing, So I found a way it was essentially nurse coaching. And then with all the things I was doing, I ended up getting a certification as a holistic nutritionist. So because I just was obsessed with the fact that food is important and it could heal us, So with all of that, I provide testing, hair tissue mineral analysis, which is basically you take the root of the hair and you could see within the last 3 to 4 months of what is going on at a cellular level in terms of what minerals are in your body and the balance, because all of the vitamins, all of the minerals, they all are working together. And a lot of us are unbalanced, especially if we are taking supplements too, we could actually be throwing that balance off. So I look at that to see nutritionally what we could do with diet, because we could see how you're metabolizing. We could see your oxidation rate within that test. And then we could also see the balance. So to see what minerals you actually need to be incorporating the most, and then work toward healing and getting to a place where your foundational health can support all the stuff that we experience in life. And that was really important to me, because the preventative health factor is like a huge passion of mine, obviously, from my own experience. And seeing as a nurse, I know I'm going on a tangent here.
No, I love it.
Being a nurse, seeing what it's like working in like a hospital and sick care, and then being a patient, I just wanted to stay far away from that, number one. And I don't want people to ever go there. Like it's like no sick care, like stay out of the hospital. So like that is kind of my ultimate goal, is to help people remain healthy and out of the hospital.
Yeah, that is amazing. That is amazing. And I mean, like, testing and knowing your body. And I've learned this, and don't get overwhelmed by all this. If you're just newly diagnosed, like you have to get to a place where you're ready for it, but it is so worth the cost of working with somebody and getting testing done on your unique body. Because like she said, we could be wasting a ton of money on supplements we're taking because it's not the right one for us, or it's our body's not even taking it in. It's like, you have to know your body and what you need.
Yeah. And one of the things, like while you're saying that, especially for cancer survivors and even, people who are experiencing bone health issues, yes, we take our vitamin D and calcium as cancer survivors, right? But if your doctor's not talking about ways to incorporate shuttling that calcium to your bones, there's something that there needs to be further conversation there, because just taking calcium isn't going to shuttle that calcium to your bones. You have to incorporate things that are going to incorporate calcium getting to your bones, like vitamin K2 is a more commonly known way to get it to your bones. So there's all these little like cofactors that are very important to supplementation, which is why I kind of fell in love with it too, because where bodies are sensitive and we want to treat them well. So yeah.
I love it. I love what you do. And I'm actually going through, because I'm trying to figure out, I'm, at this point, what am I, 51 years old. And I am like,
you look amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But I'm like, I'm in this place of like, what do I do about this AI and this tamoxifen? What do I do about hormone replacement therapy? Because, there's also that thing that's pretty scary, and it's out there and it's talked about. And there's a lot of research to say that there is still a possibility after an ER positive to go on HRT, although it takes a lot of testing. It's knowing your body. And I wouldn't do that just to do it without me knowing exactly what my body's doing. Like you have to, like, before you take something major or you start, you can't just guess and hope that it's going to work out. Like, you really need to get to the bottom of what your body's doing and how it methylates and how it metabolizes and how it detoxifies, and then you can maybe feel comfortable. But I wouldn't do it without having testing done. So
how have they talked to you in depth about doing this in the future at all yet?
About the HRT? Yeah, possible. Well, one of my doctors, I've had several doctors say you're A-okay to do it. Of course, it's not without risk.
Right.
But there's also the risk that we have by not doing it, for our brain health, for our heart health, for our bones, for everything. Like estrogen plays a huge role. God did not create estrogen in our body to kill us.
Right.
It's not necessarily estrogen that killed us. It's maybe how our body is not working properly and metabolizing certain things, and all those xenoestrogens and the toxins in our environment. So it's like if you get your body to a place where it's working properly, which you don't know that, you may even feel good, but really still not working properly. And then you might feel comfortable doing that, but it's just this thing. So yes, I'm at that place where it's a discussion I'm having. I might want to wait to the 5-year mark. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a discussion. It's out there.
I think that's smart though, to at least like have it in your brain now, do your research, ask all your questions, heal your body in the way you're doing every day, and then take it from there. And don't be hard on yourself either, because again, this is our one life and we have to feel our best while we're while we're here living it, you know?
Yeah.
And I did want to ask you while you were talking, I was thinking about this because I know you provide a lot for the cancer community, you know, I know you're kind of jumping gears and shifting to, you know, off like talking about products and things. So I kind of wanted to learn a little bit more about that while I have you here.
Yes. Yeah. No, so I was forever in health and fitness for years. I used to actually teach body pump. I used to teach turbo kick. So I was an instructor, which was super fun. I did a big online business, which I loved, and it was perfect for me at that time. And when I got my diagnosis, that was no longer aligned for me because that was more about the quick fix, or not the quick fix, but like getting protein and kill your body in the gym. And I'm like, no, we need to take a step back. And now I'm more like, I built this cancer community. I wanted to focus, like I knew, because if you don't know this, my husband has brain cancer. So it was like he had his diagnosis and then I was diagnosed, and I was like, okay, God, like I hear you loud and clear, like I'm on this earth to help other people. So that's where my passion and purpose is. And as I navigated my diagnosis and, you know, all the changes that I made after I got through because like we both said, mindset piece of it, it's really important. Slowing down, getting your head right, meditating, getting outside, walking, looking at your diet, adding in more vegetables, more fruits. And then I was like, okay, let me look at my environment.
Right.
And then I started removing like all the toxin environments and the makeups and the cleaners. And I mean, I think it's like over 180 chemicals that as women we put on our bodies.
It's
I used
insane.
to always have a candle going because I love candles.
Yeah, once you clean, you set up with all your toxic chemicals, you light a candle.
Yes, it's so beautiful.
Yes.
And then you're just like in your house with the windows closed, breathing all that in. Like literally, so many of us do that.
Yes.
So I got rid of all fragrances. And so this company that I'm super aligned with now, it's Hue and Grace. It's just a beautiful mission. It was all created because the CEOs had infertility issues and they realized it was all the endocrine disrupting products all around them. So it's home care, skincare, and consumables. Amazing. So yeah, it feels so good to be part of something that I'm so passionate about already.
Right. That you fully like can get behind and not, you know, and promote, knowing the community that you have in front of you. That it matters so much to.
Yeah, it feels good. So, and it's really fun. It's fun. It's another thing that it's not just people who've gone through a cancer diagnosis. It's people for prevention. And I would love to get to the point where I'm helping you too, like in the preventative, like let's get people to not have a cancer diagnosis and not get to a place. Let's get them beforehand.
Absolutely.
So I think that's our goal for both of us. So what are like some top tips for you that you have for women, like when they're newly diagnosed? Slow down. I guess you said that. Is there anything else, or is there anything that you would say as a holistic nutritionist? Is there anything you would say, these are the foods I don't eat? Let's do that question instead.
Foods I don't eat. So that started off with a little bit of a longer list, but now if you really break it down, the foods that you really want to avoid are obviously processed meats.
Yep.
I think that's very commonly known, as well as alcohol. And I don't want to say, I say that with, you know, the fact that I still dabble, you know, I have my drinks because I think balance is truly, I think balance is most important because yes, we can go hard, but we could also stress ourselves out by doing things the right way all of the time. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's the truth. And it's a mental and physical stress, which is huge. And like we were talking about in terms of cortisol levels and all of those things, you know, that puts our bodies in the fight or flight modes, or even you could even burn yourself out of fight or flight and live in a negative parasympathetic state, which we don't really want to live in either, because then our adrenals are burnt out, our thyroid's burnt out, all of the things are burnt out. And how's our body going to continue to heal if it can't do it and keep up? So balance in all aspects, I think is very important. And just to do what you can to find enjoyment in life. You know, I know that's not food related, but getting back to the balance.
No, but it actually is. Like going back to the food thing, I love what you said. And because if we live in fear after a diagnosis, that is no life to live, because that is just raising our body, raising the cortisol. You're constantly living in that fight or flight. You're not enjoying life. And it takes balance, and you have to get to a point where, like, I remember being on vacation And I was so stressed about me getting the right foods and how did they prepare this foods. And oh my gosh, if I drink this, is like, that is not good. And I was stressed for the first couple of days, and I said, all right, I am pretending like I don't even have a cancer diagnosis. And all of a sudden I had fun.
Yes.
And I listened to somebody else, and this is really powerful too, is there could be one person that goes to the drive-through. They're in a rush state. They're trying to like get to work, and they're not even paying attention. And they just grab a burger from some like fast food place. They eat it. And then you're on vacation and you have a burger. The way your body metabolizes that burger is different depending on your mental state.
Yes.
1000%.
Yes. And that goes back to us. Everything's all full circle, because slowing down, even when you're eating food, whether it's good food or bad food, although I don't want to say that because I know that's like very black or white, but if you're slowing down, enjoying your food, chewing the proper amount, it like you really have to slow down. It processes in your body different and affects you differently. It's just as simple as how much you chew. It's wild.
It's totally
but it
wild.
matters.
And removing the guilt from it.
Correct.
Don't have any guilt with anything you're doing. If you have guilt from what you're doing, maybe you shouldn't do it then.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I understand there's a place that where you're like, I got to get past this point of having the fear. But I mean, like, literally, if you have a glass of wine with friends or your spouse or whatever, and then you're up all night with fear, that's not good.
No. Yeah.
So I love that.
You got to check. It's checks and balances. You have to just do what feels good, but don't, if you're sitting there stressing about it, your body's not going to like that. No. And you just I think we all just want to enjoy our lives going forward and do it for the longest amount of time possible. So we really just have to give ourselves grace. I think that is another huge factor as well.
Give ourselves grace and minimize stress as much as we can. Balance, create more joy. I tell people who are struggling to create joy, I'm like, write out a list. Write out a list of all the things you love to do. It might be, I love to get a tea at this cute little tea spot. I love to listen to music. I love whatever you love. Write a list and plug it in. Plug it in.
I used to get an iced coffee. That was my, like, when I was going through treatment, I used to love going for a drive with my kids, maybe napping in the back and grabbing an iced coffee and driving. And I know that sounds so simple, but that brought me peace because I knew my kids were safe sleeping. I was enjoying my coffee, listening to whatever I wanted to listen to. And that literally was like the one thing sometimes I would just do during my day that felt normal and it felt good. And it brought me peace and I was okay with it. Like, you have to do whatever it is. It could be so small, but
schedule it in.
Right. Exactly.
Schedule it in. And if you're stuck with this, it's literally as simple as just calming down your breath. Focusing on it can be like a 16-second breath work session where you're just breathing in for 4, holding for 4, releasing for 4, and holding. Just bring your body where you can just feel it just calm.
Like, you just made me breathe like nice and deep during this. I love breathing. Is my favorite. It sounds wild. Breathing's my favorite thing to do.
I know.
Like when you just sit, actually slowly breathe and hold it, and you feel that like release a little bit
immediately.
And it's such an easy thing. Literally anytime we have to breathe. So
anytime. Because people are like, I don't have time for a 10-minute meditation. I can't sit there. I can't sit still. Okay, breathe. Focus on your breath for 16 seconds. Because literally none of us, we are so go. We don't even know our body's breathing. Our body's doing that for us. But what about if you pay attention to it every once in a while?
Mm-hmm.
You know how good that is for you?
Love that. Yeah.
So good. Anything else that you want to share that we miss? Anything? I'm looking at my notes.
No, I feel like I could probably talk to you forever about all of this stuff because
we're like the same person.
I love talking about all this stuff, but and also just giving back because sharing. One of the reasons I love following you is just because yes, you show up for the cancer community, but you share your story too. Mm-hmm. And I think that's another factor too, is being okay with what you have been through. Yeah. And I'm not saying everybody has to go and share their story. You don't have to, but there is part of healing in that. And if you're thinking about it, it's okay to talk about what you've been through. It's okay to like let it out there and have it be a real thing, because it was a real thing for you. I think some people are afraid to upset other people, and that's on them. That's not on you. You have to.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I have somebody in my community and she moved to a new area and she's struggling with sharing.
Yeah.
And it can be a lonely thing if you're not sharing. And again, you don't have to, but it is so empowering. Like every time I do a podcast, or Darren and I do one, or I'm sharing, it is so therapeutic.
Yeah, 100. Yes. I feel like I have a therapy session. Like
Yeah.
I've had multiple people say that too, where it's just like after just talking to somebody who gets it, or like letting it out, it just feels, it's just a release. And that is great. That's a great factor too. And when we kind of call back to the cortisol levels and stress and all that stuff, but yeah, that would probably be the other thing, that little thing I would say. What about you? If you had to say something to yourself, or somebody who's starting off at the journey that you've experienced, what would you say to kind of help get them through?
Yeah, we've talked about it a little bit. I mean, a lot of it probably, but I think it's truly slowing down. It's literally not reacting out of fear. I think if I could go back and talk to the person that, prior to my or as I was diagnosed, I was so consumed with fear. I would have done anything that anyone told me. And I was completely reacting out of fear. And not that I don't regret. I'm okay what happened. Like, thank God I had a really good surgeon. But if I would have, like, maybe I didn't, and I would have done what they said. Like, I think we need to slow down, take a breath.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay. I really think that getting more spiritual was very powerful. I had and this is weird. This is going to sound weird, and I don't want to end on this note, but I had such a fear of death prior to my diagnosis. And like, I couldn't even talk about it.
Weird. Yeah.
Right. I know. But then once you feel this connection, you have an understanding of what happens, why we're here, and you release that fear of it. It's so freeing. Like, I'm not, I mean, of course we want to be here as long as we can, but the one guarantee in everybody's life is we're all going to die.
Yeah. Yes.
And I mean, it's not easy to hear, I know, but it's like, if you just feel comfortable with that, and you make peace with that, it's just easier.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and it literally, because that's the biggest fear for everybody. That's the biggest fear. And when you release that, do you know how empowering that is?
100%. Yeah. I'm glad you said that, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that was probably the biggest thing. And then what is the name of your podcast is,
it's After the Bell.
After the Bell. Yep. I was going to say Lauren After the Bell. I know that's not it. So After the Bell. And then mine is Not Today Cancer. So we just kind of did this little back and forth fun thing, and we're going to be sharing on each of our podcasts. But definitely I will have all of your info in the show notes so people can connect with you. So do you help online clients as well with the hair test? Okay.
Yeah, I can, because while I typically work with local people, but I could send out anything that is needed. So of course, anybody who's interested.
And where are you again? You're
New Jersey.
New Jersey. Okay, cool. Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you. I had such a fun time talking to you.
So fun. I'm so glad we'll be connected on social media, because we are literally the same.
Yes, I know. Keep doing what you're doing.
You're just a few years younger at a different stage of your life.
You've got little toddlers running around and all that crazy stuff.
Yes. All right, Lauren. Thank you so much.